What's up, everyone? It's Dave Kim for Grand Rapids Rock Alternative 97.9 GRD and WGRD.com. I am at the historic Joe Louis Arena in Detroit with Muse bassist Chris. Chris, thank you so much, man. How have you been?
Oh, yeah, we've been good, actually, yeah. Busy.
The first time I saw you, I was working for a station in Detroit. 10 years ago, free show when Absolution came out at the Shelter, and just the line was off the charts then. I know it's kind of a cliche question, but when you guys were starting out, were your goals to fill an arena like Joe Louis?
I think so, yeah. I mean, America was always slightly behind because I think the first album didn't really do much here. Mm-hmm. The second album didn't get released here, and I guess during that period everything was kind of building up in Europe, and we got to that arena level in Europe around the third album, and it was.
It's always the case. It was bigger in Europe than anywhere.
Well, yeah, and it was a bit of a shock, really, sort of coming back because things weren't going so well with the label we were originally on.
Maverick, right?
With Maverick, yeah. And we always, really wanted to give America a crack, so we decided to come back. We signed a new label, signed with Warner's in, I think, 2003, and we sort of said to Warner's that we wanted to do what we did everywhere else, and we wanted to break through touring, because that was how it had worked everywhere else, and they were really up for that, that vibe. So we came over here. We came off the back of quite a big European tour in Europe, and came back here and did clubs and small theatres and places like that, and it was really cool actually, because it was like experiencing the new band feeling all over again.
Right.
And eventually it kind of caught up, which was great.
Yeah. Now you released your sixth studio album, The Second Law, last fall. Released a very epic trailer back in June, like Michael Bay directed it or something. Part of it got kind of mixed reviews just because of the new elements. But was that kind of frustrating because people were pretty much judging the whole record with just that little small snippet of a clip? Yeah,
maybe. I mean, it's always difficult when you want to present something from your new album. The first thing you're going to let people hear, and I think we just thought maybe we should put something out there that is the most out there thing on the album. Which obviously gets people talking, and I think sometimes whether it's negative or whether it's positive, at least it gets people talking and it builds up the anticipation for the album. I think the one thing that was frustrating was obviously a lot of people start talking about the electronic influence and the dubstep thing, but the whole point of that song was that it was almost anti that, really, because it was all done with real instruments. We wanted to, I think with electronic music we've always been really turned on by the sounds of it. And we wanted to see if we could create something that was as intense, but using real instruments.
Right.
And I think that was maybe the one thing that didn't come across initially with that song. But it got people talking, which was the main thing. And I think once the album came out, people realised that it wasn't all like that. It was just showing off one new element of the band.
I feel like dubstep is kind of a term that's as played out as emo was back in the day. But you said in a past interview that you wanted to recreate the dubstep elements, like you said, with instruments like how Rage Against the Machine did the same for hip-hop. Was it hard doing that in the studio and then trying to incorporate that through your live shows?
Not really, because I think whenever you use real instruments, it's easy. There's nothing else really involved. It's just there were some effects involved with the bass and the guitar that was a little bit different to things that we used in the past, but I think whenever you're dealing with real instruments, it's always very easy to recreate it live. It's when you get into the world of synths, computers, and things like that you kind of take things out of the live environment a little bit, and that was what we didn't want to do. We've always tried to be as live as possible.
Yeah. There are two tracks on The Second Law that you sing lead, and you wrote very personal songs, Liquid State and Save Me. Were you nervous the first time you performed those two songs, such personal songs, in front of a large audience?
Yeah, I was, yeah. The first time we did it was in Germany. I think that was the first show that we did for this album, and it wasn't a massive gig, but it was still 2,000 or 3,000, and it was pretty terrifying. It's strange when you've kind of played the same role in the band for such a long time. I've been the bass player and done backing vocals and various other bits and pieces, but you don't realise to what extent the attention is all on you when you're a singer. You know,
that single light right on you.
Well, yeah, exactly, and it was really weird because the one thing I was aware of was that as soon as we started playing the song, you know, the focus of the whole crowd sort of shifted to me, and obviously because I'd never sang before, 6 albums in, it's kind of a strange time to start doing that. So, you know, everybody was obviously very interested, and I kind of, you know, just wanted the ground to swallow me up at that point. You know, I felt really, really nervous and wasn't really prepared for it. But I think, like anything, you just need to get through that initial nervous bout, you know, and it becomes more comfortable over time. You know?
Was it your decision to have those 2 songs in your live sets, or were you hesitant and Matt and Dominic wanted to incorporate that?
Well, I think whenever you make an album, you always have to assume that everything you're going to play live. You know. You know, we've never been the kind of band to put filler on an album. You know, I think you know, every song that's ever gone on an album has gone on through merit. You know, so yeah, you assume when you're in the studio, when you put your final track list together for the album, you assume that everything that you're working on, you're doing is going to be played live. So yeah, I mean, we did. You know, it was always the plan that they were going to be in there. I think initially when we started working on those songs, there was talk of Matt singing them. You know. Because obviously it was a very different way for the band to work. I think, you know, generally the songwriter has to take the lead a little bit, you know, so that was kind of an interesting role shift that we had to overcome. But initially we just worked on the music, and, you know, me and Matt had quite a few discussions about how the vocals would work and whether we'd maybe create some kind of dual lead vocal thing, or whether Matt would sing them. And then as time went on, towards the end of the album, when we were ready to start doing vocals, then Matt sort of said, you know, I think you should sing them. You know, it's your lyrics, are personal. It would make more sense. So I gave it a go, and then obviously the reality kicked in. Then that I had to do it live. You know, which you know, gave me 3 months of sleepless nights. But you know,
now you mentioned in the past about battling personal demons and overcoming them on your own. It's tough enough for someone, just an everyday person, to do that, but to do that while you're on the road, and then. Obviously, you're veterans, and like most recent example, Billy Joe Armstrong of Green Day had his issues. Is it, no matter how long you've been in this business, is it still as hard to maintain that balance in your life?
Well, it is, and I think particularly if you have family, it's very, very hard, because you're constantly torn between obviously 2 things that you love. You know, I mean, nothing comes ahead of the family, obviously, but when you're lucky enough to be in a position where you can, you know, do your hobby as a job, and a very well paid job, there is a big conflict in your life, because you know that you have to put, you know, almost more commitment into your job than you do into your family life, you know. And I think, you know, various people deal with that in different ways, you know, and I think for me it was, you know, it was basically being drunk all the time, you know, which is very, very easy to do on tour.
Right.
But, you know, I think, you know, touring, you know, it can, as much as it is, you know, it's an amazing life, you know, and it's an amazing opportunity, but I think there are a lot of stresses associated with touring that a lot of people don't realise. You know, the amount of time away from home, you know, at the end of the day, you know, you're kind of running a business as well, and there's all these things that come into play that people don't realise, and I think some people do find it very, very difficult, particularly if you've got a family, you know, because it can take over your life, and you have to find constructive ways of dealing with it, you know.
Right. Now, some may say it's personal choice between each individual, but could the music industry do a better job? I know it's hard, because there's so many artists out there. It's not really like, say, a sports organization that can have that all contained, but could there be any I don't even, maybe there are, like, whether it's anonymous programs or things like that that can help artists better cope with the hard life on the road?
Possibly, yeah.
Or I mean, rock star.
Well, it's a very difficult thing, you know, because you know, a lot of people go to, you know, Alcoholics Anonymous, or, you know, if it's drugs, you know, there are support groups and things like that. But it's very, very difficult for somebody who's incredibly famous or incredibly well known to actually really go to those things anonymously, you know, because people will talk. So it is very, very difficult, and, you know, maybe there could be something, but I don't know. Maybe there's not enough of us. I don't know. You know?
True.
It's very difficult to have a support group for rock stars and famous actors in every town you go to.
Right. Now, Muse performed at the closing ceremonies for the 2012 London Olympic Games last year, obviously, and playing Survival. Did you have a chance to enjoy the Olympic Games themselves? I know you guys are table tennis fans.
Yeah.
Maybe go to one of those heated battles between, like, China and Korea.
Do you know what? I didn't go to as much of it as I would have liked to, and the main reason was actually the first week of the Olympics we were actually here, or we were in Los Angeles for the first week. So we kind of missed a lot of it, and the coverage on TV over here wasn't particularly great.
Yeah, everything's delayed.
It's sort of highlights packages and things like that. So it was difficult to keep up with it. But we were at home for the last week of the Olympics, obviously, because we were in the rehearsals and things. And we had a full dress run 2 or 3 days before the actual event, and we managed to wangle our way into the arena, into the stadium, and watch Usain Bolt win one of his goals.
Nice.
So it was good, but the whole vibe, was great. I mean, where I live, just outside of London, on the first day, the cycling road race came through the village, and it was amazing because there was, the village I live in is really, really small, and there was about 3,000 people just out on the main road, just watching all these cyclists come through. It was incredible, and the whole vibe of the country was pretty special. So.
Now, music and politics, they intertwine a lot, whether they want to or not. You have Tom Morello showing much dismay that Paul Ryan said he was a Rage fan, and then you have Morrissey and Johnny Marr not happy that British Prime Minister David Cameron's a Smiths fan, and then you had your own thing with Glenn Beck. Does having a high-profile person who says they're a fan of your music, who you aren't too fond of, are artists afraid of getting a backlash from other fans who kind of connect the two, whether it's unfair or not?
It can be. I mean, I think the whole thing with Glenn Beck, it was, it wasn't. If he wants to like our band, that's absolutely fine. But I think he was, he was almost sort of looking for political support from our music,
Right.
And it was a little bit like, we're the same, and it wasn't really like that. I think he got the wrong end of the stick, really. That's the impression that I got, and obviously if he wants to like the music, then that's absolutely fine. But I think
you're not going to forbid him, like.
Well, no, I mean, I don't
Johnny
think we'd
Moss.
ever. I'll be honest. I'm not really up on my politics, and it's not something that I feel particularly comfortable talking about, purely because I don't really feel like I'm qualified enough to talk about it. I have my own opinions and my own beliefs, but I don't feel qualified to preach about them because I think it's all a lot deeper than my intelligence allows me to understand. But it's a difficult one because like I said, it's fine that he likes us, but I don't think we'd want him to associate us with his beliefs or his political agendas. I don't think that's fair.
And you guys got a lot of that with the Resistance, because I remember Matt saying that you had to turn down offers left and right from politicians trying to use tracks off of that.
Well, I think the thing is, I mean, that this. With my understanding of the lyrics, it was much more about the people. Do you know what I mean? As opposed to a political movement. It's about living together and fighting for things together. It wasn't in support of any one particular political movement or anything like that.
Chris, thank you so much. This
Cool.
is such an honor.
Nice
Muse's Second Law is in stores now. It's Dave King for Grand Rapids Rock Alternative 97.9 GRD and WGRD.com.